Review.
So the question on your mind might be, is Dragon Age 2 as awesome as the first game? The short answer is no, but it's still really great. And if you value the power of choice in role-playing games, it's going to impress you. The game transforms based on the decisions you make, and it's a delight to see just how your actions affect the various paths you take.
Can't anyone fix their own lives around here?
The voice acting is absolutely phenomenal, and the soundtrack is excellent. The visuals may not be totally wonderful, but they're certainly a step up from Dragon Age Origins, and the spell effects and animations give combat a lot of pizzazz. Developer BioWare has unfortunately tried to fix aspects of the first game that were never broken to begin with. Inventory management, skill progression, and other aspects have all been simplified when compared to the original. And on the PC, the combat is less tactical. Yet in spite of a few steps back, Dragon Age 2 nonetheless has the power to keep you playing until the end. There are dozens upon dozens of quests to take, lots of interesting characters to meet, and of course, a few dragons to slay. You notice some of the obvious changes to the series right off the bat. Because of the way the story works, you can only play as a human with the surname Hawk. You do, however, get to choose a gender and a class, either mage, warrior, or rogue. Hawk is fully voiced, and you might see this as the first of many ways in which BioWare changed Dragon Age 2 to be more like Mass Effect. This makes the sequel a lot less like Baldur's Gate and the other D&D games that inspired the series. The upside is that you feel a greater emotional connection to your own character, who no longer stands there with a blank expression during cutscenes. The connection is important because the story itself is very unfocused. You and your family are refugees in the city of Kirkwall, and your vague goal is to rise up from freeloader to champion. There's no clear story thread to pull you through. Everything ends up feeling a little scattered, like a bunch of quests bolted together without a central plot.
But I can cook. I can clean.
Luckily, the questing is excellent. The way choice manifests itself is even more awesome than in the first game. This is in part because many of your decisions aren't couched in simple good or bad terms, since the world's politics aren't so cut and dry. You often need to side with one faction or another, such as mages or Templars. In turn, you steer how quests play out. The way you see those choices manifest themselves is pretty extraordinary. Sometimes you open up new paths and close others off, or you affect your relationships with your party members in ways you don't expect. Those party members include an escaped elven slave named Fenric, a good-hearted mage named Meryl, a busty pirate called Isabella, and others. They are wonderfully written and wonderfully voiced, and it's fun to get to know them through their individual quest lines and listen to their occasional banter as you run around. None of them are as memorable as the original's cast members, though. The dwarf Varric is fun to have around, but he doesn't make the same strong impression Oghren did. Anders and Aveline are fine companions, but they're no Alistair and Morgan. Other changes to the formula might delight or depress you depending on what you liked about the first game. Dragon Age 2's combat feels a lot more like an action RPG than before. On consoles at least, this makes battles more fun than before. Cooldown times have been shortened and animations have been sped up. Spells and attacks are colorful and fun to watch. PC players may not take to the adjustments as willingly. Combat is less tactical, partially because the overhead camera has been removed. You can still zoom in and out some, but an important element of the original and the games that inspired it has been taken away. Dragon Age 2 for the PC is also significantly easier than the first. If you enjoyed the challenge of the first game, you'll want to crank up the difficulty. If you thought it was too hard, you'd be glad to know there's less pausing and positioning and you can focus on fighting. Either way, combat is still entertaining and flashy, and as with most games, it's always more fun to fight when you care about the cause you're fighting for and the characters you're fighting with.
Answer my questions and I won't trouble you about this little operation.
You die now, there won't be any trouble at all. Shut this bitch up.
These changes are meant to keep you in the action. Some of the other changes might also have been designed with that goal in mind too. A lot of aspects have been slimmed down too far though. Inventory management, for example, has been streamlined. You still equip your party members, but only certain aspects. For example, Varric only uses one bow, and there are no special arrows. You can improve your party's armor, but Hawk is the only one whose armor you can switch out. Skills like trap making and poison making have been either restructured or completely removed, and you no longer spend points in those areas when you level up. Unless you count the diminished time you spend in menu screens, there's no real benefit to all of this stuff being stripped down. Fortunately, on its own terms, leveling up and improving your party members still feels good. Plus, you still get to adjust the tactics of your group by assigning different AI routines like before. And there is still plenty of flexibility in how you develop your party members. Your mages can focus on mind control or primal attacks. Warriors can mitigate threat or go all out as damage dealers. And of course, with 4 party members at once, if you tire of playing as one class, you can play as another party member on the fly. You wouldn't call Dragon Age 2's visuals best in class, but they're a nice improvement over the original. That's especially true for Xbox 360 owners. Now, the console versions are more or less the same experience, give or take a few elements. If you play on the Xbox 360, however, you will want to install the game to minimize the visual and sound stutters that may occasionally crop up. It also helps shorten the loading times, which are much too long on both the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. PC owners will also like their improvements, especially if they play using the DirectX 11 features. Better lighting and better textures on clothing and furniture make for a more pleasing overall look. Combat looks really great thanks to vibrant spell effects and energetic animations. Colors still seem washed out, especially in the city, and some textures are shockingly pixelated. But Dragon Age 2 is much easier to look at than the original. Even the soundtrack is better, with low strings and drum beats giving certain moments a dark edge. While the original's music was more or less generic fantasy, the sequel score sets the right mood and then deepens it.
Mages can tell slippery lies.
So here you have a great adventure worth seeing through, and one of the better RPGs in recent times. You steer different story threads, quests, and conversations as you see fit, but the choices aren't always easy. After all, this is a game that doesn't see things as simple black and white. Yet while this aspect of Dragon Age 2 is more complex than the original, other aspects have been disappointingly stripped down. And while the characters are great, they don't quite live up to the standards of the previous game. Yet taken on its own terms, Dragon Age 2 still rises above most RPGs on the basis of its enjoyable combat, its narrative complexities, and its excellent writing. And with so many different outcomes to explore, you may even want to go back and play it again.